Welcome back to the Free Spirits Podcast, where we explore the functional beverage space and how these drinks are changing how we socialize. I'm your host, Lars Miller, here as always with my co-host, David Gonzalez. If you're enjoying the show, please do us a favor, rate, review, and subscribe. It helps more listeners like you find these conversations. Today, we are joined by Micah Hyde, retired NFL safety, community leader, and now the co-founder of Hyde's Hail Mary, a new functional hemp beverage launching in Ohio. Welcome, Micah. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you as well. So obviously you have had some high pressure game moments throughout your career. And now you're building a consumer brand from scratch. What was the moment that made you want to commit to launching your own beverage?
Well, it's actually a pretty wild story. I did not want to get into this. This was not my goal in the first place. My wife and I purchased a building in my hometown, Fall Story, Ohio, and it's small town Ohio. We were trying to get something into the storefronts that would bring some foot traffic and help out the rest of the tenants that we have in the building. And so we were trying to we went the dispensary route. I got connected to a few people. Jim Ickes is one of them, out of Cleveland, attorney out of Cleveland, and so he tried to help me acquire a license in Ohio for a dispensary. Way too expensive. Was way too tough. The rules there, the lottery there is not like it is just up north in Michigan. So I was like, and we kind of just pivoted and, we kind of got into we started talking about the beverage space. We were going back and forth with those and how do we get the beverages into the lounge if we wanted to do that. And I started tasting some out here. I live out here in San Diego. So I started tasting some, going to the dispensary, and I like them. Don't get me wrong, but I felt like, honestly, we could have did better. And so just kind of got the conversation rolling a little bit, see what we needed to do financially, how much does it cost, all that type of stuff. And, kind of got everything lined up, got in contact with Doug Fulton with Emergent Beverages. And from there, we started Hyde's Hail Mary. And so that was, probably about 5-6 months ago. And here we are soon to have our first sampling in Buffalo, New York, and launching on our website soon, hopefully in the next couple of days. So it's all happened fast. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I don't know half the stuff that's going on, but I have a team of people. That's what I learned from football. If you're not good at one thing, get some guys that surround you that can do those jobs. And so that's what I did, and I let them, with their experience, work on their expertise, and I kind of just sit back and let them do them.
Awesome. So, how was your experience with recovery, downtime, and performance influencing the functional goals of the drink?
Well, I think when you play professional sports for so long, and I think just sports in general, it's a mental grind. So for me, at the end of the night, whether if it was having a long day of practice, all day meetings, getting home, playing with the kids, doing stuff like I could never turn my mind off of football, and it was hard for me. So that's why I kind of got into this space, which was 5-6 years ago. But also physically, I think I understand my body pretty well with all the amount of injuries that I've had. Luckily, I just had surgery one time with a neck surgery, but just, broken wrist, broken ankle, just so many things throughout the years that I have learned what, it takes to make my body feel better. And this was one of them. And so I wholeheartedly believe in it just because me personally, I was able to benefit from it. And I don't think that, without this, I could have been able to turn my mind off or recover the next days after, some brutal practices or games or whatever it may have been. So, that's kind of my own personal story about it.
Yeah, I love that. I think a lot of people have a similar way of discovering products like this. The stress of life, you're a parent, you're an athlete, you're at work. It's tough to be able to decompress at nighttime and reset and turn that mind off and do have that ability to just relax and just enjoy life. But what's really interesting to me about looking at the beverage that you guys are coming out with is looking at the cannabinoid ratios. And I won't go into the science, but you have a 5 milligram THC ratio, 5 milligram CBD ratio, 5 milligram CBG. Instead of going into the science about this, just how would I hear from you? What are you hoping that people feel when they have one of these beverages? What's the kind of effect or impact someone should expect to have when they try a Hyde's Hail Mary?
Well, I think that our first step was to make something that tastes good. And so we started off, we got a formulation put together and they sent it over to us, and we tasted it and it was very good. Well, it had, I think it was like 45 grams of sugar. So, that obviously it was very good, but that's not, the route we wanted to go down. So we got it down to 5 grams of sugar. So that was the biggest thing for us, like taste good, but taste good to a point where it's not too sugary and stuff like that. So, but then when it comes to the cannabinoids, the CBD and the CBG, for us, we wanted to have some type of, cannabinoids in that, for recovery, and for, the things like that, because it is, for us, we want it to be kind of go down the path of health and wellness, hydrate, because it is essentially a sparkling water, not a sparkling water, but a sparkling beverage. We wanted that, the hydration, the recovery, and obviously throwing the THC, you get the little buzz. We stuck to those. We tried a bunch of different things, but we felt like with those three, I call it the first 15, if it's a football reference, but the first 15, we stuck with those because we felt like that was our, that was where I felt the most comfortable at.
Yeah, so that actually makes a ton of sense now. So obviously both CBD and CBG are anti-inflammatory cannabinoids, so it helps with that body relaxation and muscle recovery. And obviously the psychoactive components of THC can help you just turn the brain off at nighttime. I heard you say it's a sparkling beverage. How do you classify Hyde's Hail Mary? Is this a seltzer? Is this a soda, a juice, a mocktail, something we've never seen before?
Yeah.
How do you classify it?
Well, obviously it's it's a low THC hemp beverage, and so for me, what we wanted to go down is we wanted to fit the beer profile. Now, obviously, we couldn't come up with a beer and put THC in it, and obviously that's illegal. So we love the lemon shandy taste, the lemon shandy, and as you can sip a lemon shandy, it's kind of a beer, but it's sweet. It's flavorful, and so kind of we stuck with that, and we felt like that could give us kind of the mind trick of a beer, and that way, it does have some type of carbonation. So when I say like sparkling beverage, I don't want you to think of like a seltzer or even a sparkling water. Like I can drink I don't know if I can say brands on here, but I can go. I go in the fridge right now and drink a bubbly or a Waterloo or whatever, and that has way more carbonation than our drink, because we wanted it to fit the beer profile, and it does, and it's a pretty fun drink to experience, and so we just kind of categorize it as a beer, kind of a watered down beer that has a little bit of carbonation and has some a cool little lemon kick to it.
So you mentioned earlier that you guys are doing a tasting in Buffalo and you're going to roll out D2C. So are you starting with a local strategy in Buffalo, or what is the rollout strategy for Hyde's?
So, depending on rules in each and every state, as you guys know, we're going to start off with some non-infused in Buffalo. And I think just for me personally, I wanted it to be Buffalo born. And so we work with Sterling Beverage up there, and my name holds a little bit more weight in Buffalo just because that's a place where I did play in Green Bay, as we talked about before the call. But really, Buffalo is where I took the next step. And for me, it's home. That's where we bought our first home. That's where I got married. My wife and I didn't get married in Buffalo, but that's the house that we got married in. Our first dog, our first kid. It's just so much home. So I wanted it to be kind of born there. But to start something when it comes to tailgating and the football experience in Buffalo, New York. So, we're going to do a non-infused version there in a couple weeks. I want to say August 23rd. And so excited for that opportunity for people to get out there and taste it. I actually took some to a bachelor party last weekend with my high school buddies. And it was a hit, man. I wanted raw feedback. Don't hold back. Give me everything. Tell me it sucks. Tell me you don't want it. You never want to try it again. And I didn't get any of that. They actually enjoyed it. So I'm pretty excited to release it to the public here in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, it's interesting. You say you took it to a bachelor party. I took some Winks back in the day, probably back in 2021, on a bachelor party trip, and similar reaction. People were skeptical at first, but probably the alcohol got them into it.
was a bachelor party too, so it's like at that point, like guys are just like whatever, you know.
Exactly. So, how do you see the rollout evolving over time? Will it be a slow regional build in the Northeast, or are you already thinking about a national as much as possible distribution?
You know, obviously nationals is our goal to get to, but right now we're just starting off slow. Like I said, we have that thing in Buffalo. We want to introduce something, you know, in the near future in Ohio, where I'm from. Just whether if we try to go down the path of, you know, maybe some of Buffalo Bills away games and pop up shop to whatever states. You know, we're just gonna take it slow. Like I said, I have some good people in my corner that have been down this experience before, and so they're kind of, you know, holding my hand, walking me through it. So I honestly can't say like we have a set game plan. You know, today, what is it, August 12th for the next year, but we're working on that, and so, you know, hopefully in the next week or two we get a sampling done in Buffalo, and we're going to continue to kind of go down that path and see what we can do. But you know, in goal, you know, I feel like with the way it's kind of circulating around the nation, you know, some states are for it, some states are against it, or even capping it at a certain milligram. As you guys know, you know, I feel like my end game goal is to get it in stadiums. I want it to be the official drink of the NFL one day. And so if I can get, you know, kind of get down that path and get it into one stadium and hopefully the next, that's kind of my goal with this drink.
I love that. So we were actually, believe it or not, we did a podcast earlier today with Iconic Tonics, so Snoop Dogg's team, and we're asking him how close is there to being a world where Snoop Dogg can do a concert and have his own beverages kind of out in the concessions. And he was like, it's a lot closer than you think. And so it is interesting to see a lot of these venues start to at least have appeal or interest. Obviously, insurance is the biggest risk, but
yeah,
I think those days are inching slowly closer and
sure.
closer. And I'm very excited to see who can have the right network, the right connections, and finally convince a stadium or a venue to say, you know, if you think about it, these beverages are probably going to be more of a net positive. They're going to be likely a higher margin for you compared to alcohol products, and less likely to have some of the negative impacts of having a bunch of people who are intoxicated and may or may not get the result they want out of the game at the end of, you know, when the clock hits zero. So it's exciting times there. But one of the things that also stood out to me about just checking your brand out online was there's kind of like a heritage cue to it in the branding. So what I mean by that is there's this vintage shandy aesthetic. It's got like a matte can, gold top. We've seen a lot of drinks on the show. We haven't seen something like that before. So can you walk us through how you guys chose that branding? A lot of the ones we see are just loud, stonery,
Yeah.
but this felt like it had some authenticity to it. So how'd you guys come up with the branding behind Micah's?
Well, I think that when it came to this was the coolest part for me, the can design, because I don't really see myself as that, you know, creative of a person. You know, I played football my whole life, so it was like, you know, X's and O's. I can talk football. When it comes to being creative, that was never really my path. But you know, we kind of went back and forth for a few months on, you know, we kind of knew the colors. You know, we wanted the green. Obviously, you know, everyone understands green being cannabis and stuff like that. But I didn't want anyone to look at a can and be like, that's a weed drink. You know, that's cannabis drink. You know, I have constantly since day one said I want this to be as a beer profile, and I say that because like I enjoy drinking beer. Growing up, I'm from a small town. That's all. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but you know, before we were 21, that's kind of what we did. And you know, even after 21, and you know, it's just that's you know, playing beer pong, doing that type of stuff, and you know, we would be responsible with it. You know, we weren't out there being crazy, but like to me, I thoroughly enjoy tasting beer and like this like socializing, having a beer, and so that's kind of where this whole thing started. Is like I want that with a cannabis drink. I want that with, you know, a hemp infused beverage. And so that's kind of how the can got designed. Like we wanted to look like kind of like a vintage beer can. I think that the diagonal and the cursive kind of gives it that, and then the gold top, you just throw that on top, and I just feel like that's a cool little piece that we got to the logo. We started off with the shield, and it had kind of like some you know, the weed leaves around it, and I was like, no, take that off. We don't want that. So we put some regular leaves around it, and then you know, within the crest, there's, you know, a few shot there's few shout outs to the places I have played, whether it's my hometown of Fostoria, you got Green Bay, you got Buffalo, and you got Iowa. So that's kind of what the shield is. And so then we also have some like football references on there, and some I think some football logos was the 5 milligram THC, CBD, and CBG, and we're doing that because obviously this is Hyde's home area. It's a football drink. I played football my entire life, so that's the path we're going down. So when it came to the design itself, we were very we were very persistent on trying to make it a beer and surround ourselves with football, and I feel like it turned out pretty well.
Yeah. Now, all three of us are Midwest boys, so I think we all imbibed on some beer in high school. So sports culture and cannabis are still finding some common ground in the mainstream. We were talking offline how the NFL still drug tests for THC, and you mentioned you want to be in NFL stadiums. You're obviously a high-profile athlete putting your name on a THC product. How do you navigate that conversation with consumers or others on who may still see cannabis as off limits?
Yeah, so that's something that I'm not gonna lie, I kind of struggled with. Just going back and forth with this over the last couple of months. I have a nonprofit that we do a lot of things, for kids, for youth, whether if it's in Buffalo, New York, my hometown of Foster, Ohio, up in Detroit, even out in Iowa. We have these huge events. A softball game that we raised last year over 700,000. This year over, I think it was like 500,000. Like just so many things that we do in the community. And so for me, I was like, I don't want people to associate what I do for the youth with a weed drink that I'm putting on the market. And for me, like I care so much about my nonprofit that I didn't want to jeopardize that with coming out with this drink. But for me, after I had long conversations with my wife and the people closest to me, number one, I'm retired, and so I could honestly care less when it comes to anybody else's opinion. It is legal. I'm not breaking any rules. And so as long as we're compliant within each and every state that we get into, and that's how we have, our attorney that is, diligent in trying to find out where we can be, where we can't be. The rules are changing, the laws are changing left and right. So he has to stay on top of that. We're aware of that. And we're just trying to go about it the right way. And so, for me, if I can personally say that it helped me in my career, and I'm separating myself from the foundation and from the nonprofit and everything else that I do in the community, then I feel like I'd be a coward by not speaking up. I'd be a coward by not introducing it to current athletes that can really benefit from it, or people that are just like me and fathers and have 2 little kids and are working all day and get home and just feel drained and can't turn their mind off or want to be present with their wives and sit down and just relax and watch a movie. And so for me, I put all that all the kind of those questions behind me. And I know once we go live and I start to market it even more, there's going to be more questions that come up. There's going to be more complaints. There's going to be more statements. But honestly, I've dealt with that my entire life. You can YouTube a few of my press conferences that have been pretty public throughout the years. That listen, man, I'm a good dude. I'm not scared to say it because I'm honest with myself. I surround myself with great people. And so this is another business endeavor that I'm trying to do to benefit people. And so if people can't see that, I can't help them. It is what it is.
Yeah, I love that answer. And one of the things that's standing out to me and going back, looking at press conferences, doing a little bit of research, you're vocal about representing your roots and staying connected to community, whether that's Ohio, Green Bay, Buffalo, wherever. And so one of the questions I had for you is, how do those values around community show up when you're building something like this? I think I heard you mention this. There is a chance to give back, and there shouldn't necessarily be a stigma because this is a drink that can help people in a lot of ways. And it is unfortunate. There is a macro kind of stigma behind it, but fundamentally you're putting together a compound that can have a net positive effect on someone's well-being. So as you're building this brand, how are you incorporating those values? Is it something that comes out in your marketing messaging? Is it how you're partnering with local communities? I guess what are some of those ways that you can work together with those local partnerships and help build this into something that is seen as a positive, and in addition to actually, being a positive thing?
Well, I think that we have had plenty of conversations when it comes to the education of this beverage, and specifically the education of THC, because that's really what we're talking about. And so for me, as I just said, I grew up in a small town, and I understand when it comes to just the community feel and how you want a community to be ran, and surrounding yourself with good people, and having to raise the youth and stuff like that. So I understand when it comes to like the community sense. That's why I kind of tried to, like you just mentioned, throw Buffalo and Iowa and Ohio and all those places within this drink, because those are the communities that raised me. And I know that THC is a common thing, or bad, has a bad stigma around it. Um, I understand completely when it comes to mental health and stuff like that. I've been surrounded by that my entire life also. So for me, I am strictly on the education of pushing low THC. Like, this is a low THC product, and this is not meant to be. You have those other beverages on the market that are 100 milligrams and stuff like that's not what we're doing. This is a consistent 5 milligram THC each and every drink that you have. And so that's it's built for the mature, healthy minded adult. And that's the way we've been pushing, and just trying to keep up with the education around it, like any way we can, whether if it's a football reference on trying to educate someone about the benefits of CBD and CBG and stuff like that. Like, we're gonna try to do that. And so that's also been pretty difficult to do, but we're going to keep trying to do that, because we understand that there is a bad stigma around it, and we're trying to create this community sense within it, and it does have its benefits. So I don't know if I really answered your question 100%.
No, you did. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely. So, Micah, I know you got a kid to pick up from school, first day of kindergarten, so won't keep you too much longer. The final question I had for you is, what does the Super Bowl look like for Micah's Hail Mary or Hyde's Hail Mary? What was your 2-3 year? What does your Super Bowl look like? Is it getting in the total line? Is it being at an NFL stadium for a Bills game? Like, what is the Super Bowl moment for this brand?
Man, that's a very good question. I haven't thought about that. What I just said earlier is we want to be in NFL stadiums. I think that's important to me, because I know how fun it is to enjoy these beverages while watching football. And I kind of what you said earlier when it comes to this drink versus alcohol. I think the alcohol creates kind of more of a rowdy vibe, which is cool. I'm not knocking anybody if they want to do that. That's fine. But for me personally, I hate waking up the next day after doing that. That's not. It takes me 2-3 days to get back on my feet. Like, I was at a bachelor party this weekend, like I said, and it's Tuesday. I'm just now getting back, so I'm glad I could hop on this call and not feel like crap. So. That's kind of where I want this drink to get to, is to be in NFL stadiums, and just whether if it's stadiums or concerts or anywhere. I just want people to kind of surround themselves with these drinks, and because it does create some type of community and some togetherness, and you can socialize and have fun and do whatever. So that's kind of where I want to get to.
Awesome. Micah, thank you so much for sharing your journey, giving us an inside look at launching Hyde's Hail Mary. To our listeners, if you enjoyed the episode, please take a moment, rate, review, subscribe on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And thank you so much for tuning in. See you next time. Cheers.